Hello and welcome back to Part-Time Bodybuilder. This is your host, Holly Jeans. It is a Sunday morning here in sunny Bournemouth, and it has been an especially long week this week and I'm feeling particularly tired. So I apologise if this doesn't go particularly well. I'm going to record a solo episode today, and I thought I would cover off a bit about what I've learned about bodybuilding and kind of a beginner's guide to bodybuilding, if that's what we want to call it. I'm now a bit older. I'm actually turning 28 tomorrow. 25 scared me. I felt like I needed to be a grown-up, so 28 is really scaring me. So I like to think that I'm slightly older and slightly wiser, and I have been in the kind of competing community for 2.5, 3 years. So I have got some experience. I'm not the most experienced and I'm probably not the most knowledgeable, but this is my views on what I've learned and what I kind of didn't know going in when I started. Your views might differ to mine, or you might be able to add to them. I actually did a Instagram questions box the other day and asked for people's advice to first-time competitors, so this does feature some of that. A lot of it was kind of in line with what I was thinking anyway, so hopefully a lot of these points will be quite universal to everyone. I think it's worth saying that I came into bodybuilding not having a clue what I was doing. I was quite challenge focused, so it's not like I jumped into an extreme challenge without doing something extreme before, if that makes sense. It wasn't like a massive jump. I've run a marathon, I've skydived, I've done Tough Mudders, I've climbed mountains, so it was kind of the next challenge for me. It was something to aim towards. However, I think if you've been through a bodybuilding prep, you'll know it's like no other challenge. It's not one that you can switch off from. It's not like when I marathon trained, I went out for a run on an evening for a couple of hours or whatever. I trained for a couple of hours and then I kind of forgot about it. Bodybuilding is 24/7. You have to be on it with your food, your cardio, your training. So it is like none other. And I didn't have a clue. I went into it very naive. I didn't really know anything about the industry. As I've mentioned before, I work full-time in a corporate job. I don't have a fitness background. I'm not qualified at all in fitness, so there was no kind of knowledge base there. What I will say is that I had been with my coach for quite a while and we'd worked quite hard on my kind of adherence to a plan, and I was already kind of leading the lifestyle in that I trained regularly, I did my cardio, I followed a meal plan. So that kind of aspect wasn't a massive jump for me. I think someone coming into it without that base, it's going to be an even bigger shock. So there's probably like 6 or 7 points that I'll cover today, and hopefully they're useful. I think if you're a seasoned competitor, hopefully you'll be nodding along and saying, yeah, okay, I completely relate to all of the points, or you might have stuff to add. So feel free to shoot me a DM if I've missed anything, because what I'm actually planning to do, I had a bit of a creative evening the other day, and I'm going to pull together a series of free ebooks for the podcast on various different topics, and one of which I'm hoping to pull together a beginner's guide to competing. So any feedback or points I've missed, please shoot them over to me because it'll be really, really helpful. Hopefully this podcast and the ebook will really benefit some first-time competitors or people looking to get into the sport and wanting to find out a little bit more, because I think it's something you need to think through. Don't do a Holly and jump in with no idea what you're doing. Although it has been a blessing for me and something that I still very much enjoy and I'm glad I found. So, swings and roundabouts. But the first point, which is very much in line with what I've already said, is that bodybuilding is a massive commitment. And I'm talking about money, time, emotional effort. And some people might say sacrifice. I don't like to use the word sacrifice because I don't see it as that. It's something I love and I really enjoy. So I don't see any of my journey as a sacrifice. But if you're doing this as a one-off challenge, or you don't particularly enjoy it or whatever, this might feel like a sacrifice to you. So in terms of time, like I said, it's not a 1 hour day, get your training in and you're done kind of thing. This is, if you commit to a prep, you almost have to be completely tunnel visioned in that prep and just devote everything to it. And so, for example, when I'm on prep, which is very similar now to my off season, I don't really call it an off season, I call it an improvement season, because my prep and my off season look largely the same now, although there is a little bit more room for flexibility in off season. I still train as much. If I've got cardio, I still do that. I still stick to my steps. I still check in with my coach. I'm still very accountable. And I push just as hard now in off season, improvement season, as I do in prep. And that's very different to everyone. Everyone approaches their journey differently. Some people, it is a, fuck it, I've finished my competition. I'm going to have 6 months, a year off and not even think about bodybuilding and come back and do my prep again. And they might still train, but they might, it's not their focus in off season, which is fine. Everyone does things completely different and has different goals and different, priorities. So I've got a bit sidetracked there. Let's get back on the train. So my day on prep looks like waking up at 5:30ish. I now do my cardio fasted, so if I had cardio, I'd do it fasted. Then I would get ready for the day, get on the road to work. I would work my normal job. My job's not a 9 to 5. I said 9 to 5, but it's not. So I'd do my normal working day, and then I normally get to the gym around 7, half 6, 7ish, train for 2 hours, and then come home, normally about 9:30. I then obviously shower, get changed, eat my post-workout, prep my meals for the next day, and then I sit down and try and unwind. By that point, it's probably 10:30ish. Go to bed around 11, and it all starts again the next day. And on rest days, I do my food shopping. I might get a massage. As you can tell, there's not a lot of room there for even stuff like replying to texts, ringing your friends and family, all that kind of stuff that you would normally do. There's no room for that on prep. So, I do try and be as social as possible. But I'll use my rest days as kind of social days. So I'll go and meet my mum for a coffee, or I'll go and meet a friend, go for a walk, etc. Try and use activities that I can do on prep to make them social. So it is a commitment. It's going to take up a lot of your time, and it's going to take up a lot of your energy. As you get towards the dog end of prep, so the last few weeks, it's likely that you're going to be tired, you're going to be a bit grouchy, and you're not going to really want to do anything outside of what you need to do to get by. You don't feel particularly social. I mean, everyone will experience it differently, but that is my experience, and I think I share that with a lot of people. Although what I will say is that I've learned that prep doesn't have to be antisocial. My first prep, I just wanted to shut myself away and couldn't really understand how anyone could navigate social situations, like going to dinners and stuff like that. However, I would say that, that is really important to keep up those networks with people, because they are your support system. And if you want them there cheering for you on show day, you know, a relationship is a two-way street, whether it's a friend, a partner, whatever. You need to be putting in as much effort as they're giving out. So, you know, prep is your choice. Try not to be moody and horrible to that person. Try and keep it to yourself and be as available to them as you possibly can. And like I said, you can factor in social things on prep. I quite like going to the cinema with friends on prep because I can get a sugar-free drink and go. I mean, I have gone out for dinner. I'm quite comfortable sitting there and not eating, but I know plenty of people take their scales with them and just ask for plain grilled chicken and salad with no sauce and stuff on. Places will do it for you. I've stayed in hotels on prep and they've made my breakfast to my order, you know, no oils, no nothing. So you can do it. Other things, like I mentioned, coffees, walks. If your friends are into training, you could get a training session in with them. It is possible to do it. So you don't need to shut yourself away on prep. Okay, so I think that one's covered off. The second one I want to talk about is your coach. So it's probably the most important investment that you'll make on prep is your coach. They are the one who are helping and guiding you to show day. You are effectively putting your health and happiness in their hands. So choose wisely. And you want someone with the relevant experience and knowledge to be able to get you there. You want someone who's got plenty of experience of prepping clients and knows how to do so in the healthiest way possible. So choosing your coach can be quite a challenge. I think a lot of people don't know how to navigate it. What I will say is talk to them. So if you've got a few people that you think, oh, they might be good for me, have a chat with them on the phone, see if you gel, see what kind of experience they've got, what qualifications they've got, and how they structure things, how you communicate with them, how you check in, how they structure their plans, and see if that suits your personality. If you're someone who needs support, particularly as the first time, you probably will. You probably don't want someone who you're going to send an email to once a week and they reply to that email and then they don't want to hear from you. So make sure you ask about communication channels and how you can get hold of them and how long they take to respond, kind of thing, and whether that suits what you're after. What I will say is don't choose a coach based on their social media following. There's probably only a handful of coaches in the UK that I would recommend, and I'm more than happy to give people advice if they want to reach out to me. I've worked with quite a few coaches now, and I've also spoken to a lot of girls. I've had a lot of girls on the podcast, and I've generally spoken to people about their coaches, so I kind of know who I would and wouldn't recommend. And I would say that the ones with the large following are normally very, very good marketeers. Doesn't necessarily mean they're good coaches. And also they're probably working with a hell of a lot of girls, and marketing yield suggests that if you work with a lot of people and you put a lot of people on stage, then you are likely to get results. So if the lineup is, 6 girls out of 10 belong to that coach, it's highly likely that some of his girls are going to come away with medals. So just bear that in mind. I'm always of the thinking, and I say this to my friends quite a lot, that those who shout the loudest normally aren't the ones that are doing the things that they're shouting about, because the ones that don't are getting on with it and their clients speak for them, basically. They don't need to shout about how wonderful they are because their clients do it for them, and they're too worried about making sure their clients are happy than shouting about how wonderful they are. So that is my view anyway, controversially. I think you really need to trust your coach. So the most effective prep you're going to have is by following the plan the coach is giving you and communicating with them openly and honestly. Because if you're going off plan or not doing what they're asking you to, and you check in and weight's not moving or the look's not improving, then they're going to start implementing things to try and get that stuff moving, because you're representing them at the end of the day as much as you're representing yourself on stage, and you've hired them for a job, and that job is to get you stage lean. So they are going to keep altering stuff. So if you're not sticking to that, they've got nowhere else to go apart from taking the cardio up and bringing the calories down. So be honest. If you go off plan, we all screw up. We're all human. Just hold your hands up and say, I fucked up. And they'll be able to help you. And that's where you need to have that trust and that good working relationship with your coach, so you feel like you can do that. So yeah, that is your coach. Coming back to the commitment part, competing is really, really expensive. I'm not going to pretend that it's not. So I think you need to come into it with your eyes open, that it is an investment. So I would say that my season this year, before it all got cancelled, was going to cost me between $1,000 and $2,000. If you think about it, hopefully you're already paying for stuff like monthly gym membership, food, supplements, and coach potentially. So they're all kind of standard expenses, but you know, a lot to factor in. Particularly your coach is probably going to be one of the biggest expenses that you pay out for. And then you've got stuff like regular sports massages, because remember, you're training your body like an athlete, and therefore you need to look after it as if you are one. You've got kind of your show day expenses, so you've got your jewelry, your makeup, your hair, your bikini, your stage pictures, your posing shoes. You've got your entry fees and potentially registration fees with your federation of choice. A lot of them do it differently. So some you have to pay a membership to the federation and plus entry fees, and some of them just do entry fees. It depends what federation you choose. Now, with all those expenses, you can probably reduce them. There are ways you can make your competing season a bit cheaper. But they're kind of the fundamentals. And then you've also got stuff like your travel to the show, your hotel if you stay, and then posing coaches too, because I think your bikini and your way you present yourself, along with obviously following your diet and having a good coach, are real fundamentals in terms of presenting the package that you want to present on the day. So competing is expensive. So do your research and make sure that you know how much money you're going to have to commit and whether you can afford it before you then start going for it. Okay, so it kind of comes back to the social aspect, that you don't have to give up your social life. There is a really, really great community in bodybuilding, and it's one of my favourite things about the sport. So I would highly recommend, as a first timer, that you throw yourself into the community and that you learn as much about the process and everything about competing as you can, because it can feel quite overwhelming, the amount of knowledge that you have to have. But what I would say is that everyone, or more or less everyone, is very, very willing to help. There are a lot of people and resources that are there for you to learn from. So go to seminars, go to events, go to posing workshops, listen to podcasts, do your research, go on YouTube. There's a plethora of information out there for you to get hold of. And from my experience, amateurs right through to the pros, if you send them a message on Instagram, they will reply to you. They might not do it straight away, but they will get back to you and they will be willing to help. And as I said, my messages are always open and I will always get back to people if they need help or advice. And I know most people are exactly the same. I know every guest that I've had on this podcast has said the same, that they're really willing to help. And I think that's a misconception in the sport, that it's going to be really bitchy and really catty, but it's not. That's not my experience at all. I've made friends for life from this sport, and it's probably one of the best things that's come out of it. And also, if you're part of a team, you know, get chatting to other people on your team. Find out if there's a team WhatsApp that you can join and you can get involved in that. There's so much. So get stuck in. And one thing that I don't think a lot of us realise, or I certainly didn't expect, is the post-comp rebound stage. I knew prep was going to be hard, and I kind of oversold how hard prep was going to be to myself. And I actually didn't find it as hard as I thought I was going to. What did surprise me was how much I struggled transitioning off prep. I didn't expect my food focus to be as big as it was, or as big of a problem as it was. I didn't expect that seeing your body change would be hard. So going from being really, really lean to putting some more weight back on, which you have to do because being stage lean is not maintainable and it's not healthy. So you do need to come and reverse back out of it. So I think preparation is key with that one. Knowing that it might be difficult is really important. And having a plan with your coach to come out of it is good. I know now for me, I think you learn quite a lot from the first one about how you want and don't want to do it. I know for me now, I don't enjoy reversing slowly. I would much rather take a big bump in calories and deal with a bit of fat gain and maybe do a bit of a recomp a bit later into my off season than kind of build up slowly. It just doesn't work for me. I really, really struggle. So that personally for me is the way I go, but some people might really struggle with that additional fat gain that potentially I get over other people who are better at reversing out. So it's kind of picking which one works for you, and also what your priorities are. So for me, if I've lost my period, etc., I want to get it back as quickly as possible. I want to get back to as healthy a body as I can quickly. So staying in a deficit or building up slowly is just doesn't work for me. So keep your coach on as well, keep that accountability there and that mental support as well, someone that you can go to help. I'm really struggling, someone who understands the process and kind of knows where you're coming from and kind of expects that it might be a challenging time is really useful. Whether or not you want to compete again, I think it's really useful just to keep them for a little bit of time, set some new goals with them. And what I would say is kind of reevaluate what your values are. So when you compete, your goals and values are all very tunnel visioned on your show and doing well in the show. Whereas in an off season, when that goal's gone, you kind of, I don't know, it feels like there's nothing to aim towards anymore. So for me, it was, right, okay, I want to get stronger in the gym. I want to be more social. So I want to see my friends and family more and be more available to them. So I kind of set goals in line with those things and switch the focus a little bit. So that's something that's quite helpful too. Okay, I think that one done. Mental versus physical effects. So prep is hard on body and mind. So some of the physical kind of aspects, I think you expect that it's going to be physically hard. So you are tired, can be emotional as a female, lethargic, kind of you expect that. I'm cold all the time, needing to wee more often, all these fun things that you don't think about. My face disappears, so I look like the skull emoji. None of your clothes fit. You've got prep and an off-season wardrobe. But I actually think that the mental side of it is sometimes harder than the physical side of it. So that kind of questioning yourself, feelings of not feeling good enough, comparisons, kind of that battle with your mind, like mid cardio when you think, I can't do this anymore. Your mind often gives up before your body will. So I think just being prepared for that and really working on your mindset and kind of your mental resilience before you do that. I think me having run a marathon before doing bodybuilding stood me in quite good stead, because I'd built up that resilience to kind of training and cardio, that when I don't want to push, that I've got the toolkit now to kind of talk myself into it. So when my mind starts telling me that I can't do it anymore, I can kind of override it. So that's a really important aspect. I think that's an area that's kind of lacking at the moment, is we all try and look after our bodies and the physical side of it, but we don't necessarily spend so much time looking after our mental health. So I think it's a really important part of the sport that's sometimes neglected. And I've listened to a lot of podcasts and I've read a lot of books, and I probably only started working on that on my second prep. I used to listen to Impact Theory, Tom Bilyeu, who is amazing. And my favourite episodes are the ones with David Goggins and the ones with Mel Robbins. And I listen to them nearly daily on prep, because they just really helped me and really helped reframe the way I was thinking. So be prepared for that one too. Leading quite nicely from that is that remember that you're running your own race, and you're not racing against anyone else. I come into the sport probably quite late compared to some people. I was 25 when I started, 25, 26, and I'm now 28. So I wasn't 16 or 18 coming into it, or I hadn't had a sporting background. I hadn't come from years and years of training. So my physique and my journey is going to be very, very different from someone who's potentially been doing competitive sports since they were a young child, or someone that's competing for, say, 6-7 years compared to my 3. You can't compare that. It's two completely different journeys. And like with everything in life, we all do things on our own time scale. I know for me, like, a lot of my friends are getting married and having babies, and that's just not on my, horizon or agenda yet. And that's fine, because this is me, and I wouldn't be me unless this was my own journey. So, it is hard. I'm not going to pretend that I haven't done it, because I have, but just remember that it's your journey, and as long as you're getting better and you're comparing you against you, then that's all that matters. And on that point, take your time. The stage will always be there. So it's going to be a 2-year off season by the time that I step on stage next. When I got off stage last time, I realised that I was just nowhere near the other girls, and that's fine in terms of muscle mass and maturity. And I need to take this time away to come back better, and that's okay. It's just what I need to do in order to be better. So it will be there. The stage isn't going to go anywhere. Well, it might off this year, but we're ignoring COVID. It will be back. So it doesn't matter whether I put on my shoes next year or the year after, or whether I take a 5-year break and come back. It will be there. So there is absolutely no rush to do it. And I think leading on from that, it's set your own boundaries. So I think health and hormones, I'll talk about afterwards, are a really important topic, and kind of setting your boundaries with that as well. So I'm not going to be naive and say that steroids aren't used or performance enhancing drugs aren't used in female bodybuilding, because they are. I made a decision when I started that was something that I wasn't willing to do, and that was my boundary. I don't have anything wrong with women choosing to do it, as long as they know the risks and they've done their research and are making an informed decision based on the risk and reward, and that they're willing to accept that risk. Fine, do it. It's not a risk that I'm willing to take, and you will speak to plenty of people that will say, oh, you know, everyone's doing it in the sport, or you might join a coach who suggests that you should do it, or people in the gym might tell you that you should do it. And I think knowing your own self and your own boundaries will stand you in really good stead, because for me, I've always said, no, that's my boundary and I'm sticking to it. You know, if you're telling me that I'm not gonna get, you know, a pro card because I'm not willing to do that, then that's fine. It's not worth that risk for me. So it's just recognizing where your boundaries are, and that could be with anything. So another example is kind of what pictures you post on Instagram. I don't particularly like posting my back shots on Instagram because I don't know, I just don't like opening my Instagram to a picture of my own arse. And that's, again, kind of because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean that I have to do it. Another example is I used to send check-in photos to my first coach in shorts and a sports bra until I got my bikini on my first prep, which in hindsight probably need to see glutes in order to see whether they're coming in or not, but that is what I felt comfortable with. And never once did he turn around and say, Holly, you need to send me a picture in your underwear or whatever, because he respected my boundary and what I was comfortable with. So it's a whole broad spectrum, and there's millions of things in that, but just own your own decisions and your own race. And I think there's quite a lot of like coach blaming and things like that, particularly where I've seen with steroid use where people have said, oh, you know, that coach never should have told her to take that. And I do agree that they've got a level of responsibility to, you know, practice safely and things like that and be knowledgeable. But I also think there's a responsibility on you as an athlete to do your own research and to kind of own your own decisions. So if someone turned around to me and said, I don't even like taking paracetamol, so I'm probably the worst example of this ever, but even stuff like Yimbine. So if a coach turned around to me and said, I want you to take this supplement, I would ask why and what effects it was going to have, and I would do my own research before saying, yeah, okay, I'll take that. So just don't blindly jump into decisions without knowing what you're doing, is all I would say. Because even if something is natural, doesn't mean it's good for you. Because, you know, heroin, you could argue, is coming from a natural source, but it's still illegal. So anyway, that's a massive, massive tangent. Another one is not fixating on placings. You want to enjoy your journey as much as possible. If you're not enjoying your prep and your journey, is it really worth it? And a placing at the end of the day is an icing on the cake, but it shouldn't be the whole cake. You can never control who turns up on the day. You can't control what the judges are thinking or what they're looking for. So you're fixating on something that you have absolutely no control of, and therefore you're setting yourself up for failure and disappointment. Show day should be an enjoyable experience. It should be the celebration at the end of all the hard work, because the real challenge is getting to the stage. And what you've got to remember is you're in a real small minority of people that have ever made it there. So that in itself is an accomplishment and something you should be extremely proud of. And for some people, just getting there or putting a bikini on and going on stage in front of people, or walking in heels, or managing to remember their posing routine is amazing, is the biggest achievement ever. And quite a lot of comments I got after were things like, so did you place? And you almost feel like you've got to go, oh no, I didn't come away with anything. But it's okay, because I really enjoyed it. I had a really good day. And you find yourself justifying the fact that it was still a good experience even though you don't place, which I find quite sad, because it should be a well done, you've done so well, I'm so proud of you for getting to that point. The first question shouldn't be, so did you walk away with a medal? So just try and make it as enjoyable as possible. I've said this on a previous podcast, but it always sticks with me. When I ran the marathon, someone said to me, you've already run your marathon, the day is your lap of honour. And that is how I view my stage time too. It's a celebration at the end of the long journey. So I'm going to wrap this up here. I think I've been waffling for quite a while, but hopefully that actually made some sense and was useful to some degree. But as I said, I'm hoping to pull together a bit of an ebook on a beginner's guide to competing, along with a few other bits that I've got in the pipeline. Also, as I mentioned, the podcast is also now on YouTube. So if you want to see my face instead of just listening to my voice, you can head over to there to watch it. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit like and subscribe. So it helps to get the message of the podcast out there a little bit more. And any feedback, as always, please let me know and tag me in your stories when you get listening. But thanks so much for making it this far. I've been your host, Holly Jeans, and I will speak to you again soon.